professional tour took place in Helsinki, Finland, and this was the second time that the tour came to an Olympic venue. As if you recall, the Olympics were here back in 1952. We just got a glimpse of Paavo Nurmi, perhaps the most famous Finnish sportsman, won 9 gold medals in the early 20s. But this is triathlon, swim, bike and run, and we have the sprint variation of triathlon. This is the first time on the tour that we have a sprint. That's a 750-meter swim, 20-kilometer bike ride and 5-kilometer run. The first wave off with the professional women. There were 14 of them in the field, and both were vying for $15,000 in prize money. $15,000 for the men, $15,000 for the women. 5 minutes later the men went, but the early leader for the women was Gitta Jarlström, the Olympic distance champion from Finland, and she had some tough opposition in Karen Smars, the 1990 world champion, Joanna Ritchie, the 91 world champion, in all a very high-class field, as was the men's division. And again, we had 2 world champions, both current in Simon Lessing and Spencer Smith from Great Britain, the senior and junior world champions respectively. And I suppose their main opposition was going to come from Mike Pigg from Arcata, California, the American, who's had really a great role this year. He's won 7 of his 8 races. And after last week's disappointment in Cleveland, the previous race on the ITP Tour, where he had too much on his mind, he said he's really going out to win this sprint race, which for the best will be round about 55 minutes. The women, well, they'll be round about the hour, I would think. But this is Gitta Jarlström, the Finnish champion, coming out first. Her swim time, just over 10 minutes, 10:21. And right behind, Joanne Ritchie, the 91 world champion for triathlon, and indeed the current 92-93 world champion for indoor rowing. But in the men, it was Spencer Smith and Simon Lessing who really headed throughout, with the Australian Brad Bevan in the green cap we just got a glimpse of right behind. But this is Spencer Smith, and he was out in a very fast time of 9 minutes 5 seconds. And indeed, there was only a few seconds that covered the first 5 or 6 men out of the water. In the women's division, immediately the American Karen Smars went to the head. Gitta Jarlström, the swimmer, dropped off fairly early on, and she was followed by Isabelle Mouton with the pink helmet here, and right behind Joanne Ritchie, the Canadian, who of course is the current world indoor rowing champion. In the men's race, well, Mike Pigg, perhaps the fastest biker in the sport, he went to the head very early on indeed, and was closely followed by our 2 world champions from Great Britain, Simon Lessing and Spencer Smith. So we've got Karen Smars and 2 others, Isabelle Mouton and Joanne Ritchie in the women's division, and likewise in the men's division we've got a group of 3. And this is the leader of that group of 3, Mike Pigg. He eases through the tail end of the women's field. They must be wondering what's happening. 5 minutes for them is not quite enough, but we'll have to wait and see for the women's race. This is the women's race. Back in the bike park, it's Karen Smars, Isabelle Mouton and Joanne Ritchie. In fact, Joanne is second, Isabelle is third. And right behind, in fact, they were all in together with the 3 lead men. And this is Pigg. He was first back with the fastest bike split. Lessing, number 1, perhaps rightly so, and Spencer Smith third in. But out on the 5-kilometer, the final 5-kilometer run course, Karen Smars was quickly caught by the 3 lead men. And straight after that, the 2 men, the 2 Brits, went away with Lessing on the right and Smith on the left. After some aggressive racing by Smith, Lessing got fed up and made, in fact, a decisive break of the race. With about 2 kilometres to go, he went away and led for the remainder of the race and came home a victor here at the Strand Triathlon. For the 8th race on the tour, for the men, it was Simon Lessing, and his time was a very quick 49:36. And for the women, it was Karen Smars, the American, and the Canadian Joanne Ritchie, she placed second. The ITP rankings, the professional rankings after the 8th race, Smars goes to the head for the women, and Mark Allen stays to the front for the men, but Mike Pigg, with his 3rd place here, moves into 2nd place. The next race on the tour is in the Chicago Sun Times Triathlon, the biggest race in the sport.